What's happening, folks? Back with another reaction, back with some more Bruce Springsteen, and we're continuing through this select playlist, which is actually just kicking off what will be a very long and multi-chapter journey through the boss's material. Thank you again to Michaela, both for this playlist and all the other chapters that lie ahead of us. But I've chosen in this large selection of specially curated tunes to react to Youngstown, or maybe Youngston. I'm guessing Youngstown. Youngston would be more of like a British pronunciation. In any case, I think there are some places in the world with this name, though I don't make any assumptions about whether this is a real Youngstown or a Youngstown in a story, and even if it is a real Youngstown, which one it might be. In any case, I have no doubt there will be a narrative, multiple characters, or at the very least a nuanced and multifaceted scene painting. I have learned to expect that much from Bruce's lyrics so far, and let's see what type of sonic configuration it'll be. This is Bruce Springsteen, the track is Youngstown, and it's from a special selected playlist provided by Michaela.
Here in Northeast Ohio, back in 1803, James and Daniel Heaton found a yard that was lined in Yellow Creek. They built a blast furnace there along the shore, and they made the cannonballs that helped the Union win the war. Here in Youngstown, here in Youngstown, my sweet Jenny, I'm sinking down here, darling, in Youngstown. With my daddy worked the furnace, kept up and hotter than hell. I come home from mom, work my way to Scarford, a job that suit the devil as well. Well, the taconite, coke, and limestone fed my children and made my bed. Them smokestacks reaching like the arms of God into a beautiful sky of soot and clay. Here in Youngstown, here in Youngstown, sweet Jenny, I'm sinking down here, darling, in Youngstown. With my daddy come on the Ohio works when he come home from World War II. Now the yard's just scrap and rubble. He said them big boys did what Hitler couldn't do. Yeah, these mills, they built the tanks and bombs that won this country's war. We sent our sons to Korea and Vietnam. Now we're wondering what they were dying for. Here in Youngstown, here in Youngstown, my sweet Jenny, I'm sinking down here, darling, in Youngstown. From the Monongahela Valley to the Mesabi Iron Range, to the coal mines of Appalachia, the story's always the same. 700 tons of metal a day. I swear you tell me the world's changed. Once I made you rich enough to forget my name. In Youngstown, in Youngstown, my sweet Jenny, I'm sinking down here, darling, in Youngstown. When I die, I want a part of heaven. I would not do heaven's work well. I pray the devil comes and takes me to stand in the fiery furnaces of hell.
this guy. It's a very moving tune, and I love the simple and folksy sonic arrangement, not only because I think it fits the mood and narrative of the tune, but also because it lets us focus on Bruce's vocal storytelling. I do love the fiddle. It really gives it, again, a rural, and I think in this case specifically, like southeastern rural sound. He does mention the Appalachians, so I still don't know specifically what Youngstown we might be referring to, but I think it is in what we would now call the American Southeast. And indeed, it sounds like the history of this town and his family is bound up with the history of the United States in a way that is both honorable but also a bit tragic and also complicated, meaning he makes reference to like 1802, not all that long after the nation was founded, and in that regard I feel like that was the first chapter of the story of this Youngstown, and I think maybe his family goes way back, so I don't know if it was a great-great-grandparent or great-great-great-grandparent, what have you, but then he's talking about how this town began to be a source of industry for national purposes, the idea that and indeed, maybe, and I say Southeast, but it sounds like the cannons which helped win the Civil War in the second half of the 19th century were made there. So, I guess only as far south maybe as Maryland, and maybe more East Coast than Southeast per se. But yes, that the industry which allowed the Union to win the Civil War was part of the story of this town. And then you go forward a little bit more, and he's talking about the 20th century and how the coal mines and the metalworks factories were part of, again, the output which was of national significance and which was part of the war machine that helped the U.S. win in World War II, and his father went away and fought in the war and came back, and then talking about how the sons of Youngstown fought in Vietnam, and then at the end of that wondering, what did their sons necessarily die for, and it sounds like as we get to the 20th century, this infrastructure, this industry of Youngstown has fallen into disrepair, and it's a shadow of what it used to be, and the town didn't continue to get an influx of investment from the government or the powers that be, so it's almost like the town's history and significance and role in serving the United States hasn't really been appreciated, which then kind of dovetails with the idea of what did our sons die for in the Vietnam War, and the idea that maybe the coal smokestacks and the metalworks and so on, it has perhaps polluted or poisoned the natural blue skies and environment of Youngstown, and given that it seems to be sort of a forgotten place, what was it all for? So yeah, it's a song that is again quite like noble and very human, and speaking to the multi-generational sacrifice that the people in this town have made, but also wondering if it's truly been appreciated. I mean, there was a line like, the story's always the same, so it feels like there's a recognition that those who buy in aren't always given their proper dividends, whether that is literally financially or in terms of recognition and acknowledgement. And he talks about, the furnaces, the living hell of working in these, metalworks or coal plants and so on. And then again, by the end, he's talking about the furnaces of hell. He hopes the devil comes and takes him. I think he mentioned making enough money to get by, but it still seems like it's sort of blue collar and humble. The whole thing, I think, is framed around telling this Jenny, which I'm going to read more or less directly, like a girl that he's involved in, his girlfriend, maybe his wife, or at least a girl that he's fond of, And he's like telling her this story, the story of the town he comes from, the story of his family going back generations in this town. And it sounds like he's almost resigned by the end, sort of like the town is, the idea that, in the end, I don't expect to get much from this, and, I'd rather have the devil come take me because it'll be similar to what I've known. So, yeah, I think there's some aspects of this that I'm not seeing clearly, but the overall feeling of the narrative, I do think I did catch. Nevertheless, I just have to say, I sympathize with Bruce, not only because I'm enjoying just this early phase of understanding his music and hearing some songs from some different albums in years, but his ethos and his views of things, which admittedly is a bit informed by things I've heard him say in recent years, or specifically in the last couple years, and I find them very admirable and sympathetic with the way I see the world. So, yeah, I'm becoming a very big fan of Bruce on multiple levels. So once again, major thank you to Michaela for providing this material, and to a number of folks who've already begun commenting on this deep dive. So yeah, another masterful tune. Love the sonics, that fiddle in particular, as well as there was a bit of a guitar flourish at the end, and just the overall feeling of the track, and what I did catch from the vocals, or rather the lyrics, as conveyed by his very folksy and fitting vocals. In any case, let me know what you think. I will see you next time. Peace.